episode of Tru Self, and I'm here with
Michelle McLaughlin.
Yes, so this feels weird because we're in Boston Park, so I wanted to talk to her about comparison, only because like I've known Michelle for some years, and I feel like she's a great example of like not caring what the other people are doing, well, what I see, my perception. So, and not really focusing on what people are doing, kind of focusing on what she's doing most likely. So is that true?
Yes.
How, like, tell a story like how you used to be and how you kind of overcome the comparison thing.
I grew up, I think this is like very easy for a lot of children of immigrant parents to understand. I grew up with a Caribbean mother, a Christian Caribbean mother. So a lot of times if I asked for anything because I saw someone else had it, her response was always, well, you're not them. And then to help with the whole, Christian part, she used to always be like, well, you're set apart, you're meant to be different, blah, 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 blah. And having that slammed in your head all through elementary school, you just learn, you're like, all right, I'm gonna have to figure out how to navigate this space different from what everyone else is doing. After that, it was just easy sailing. By the time I got to high school, I really did not care about anybody else. I had my best friend, Elizabeth, and we were two weird Christian kids that just enjoyed each other's company and making friends with everyone, regardless of what clique they hung out with in high school, and the rest is history.
You just reminding me of like how my mom was, because I remember always asking, especially when I got to high school, I used to be like, oh, can I get a pair of beef and broccolis? And classics. Because I remember like even macaroni and cheese, even like just I realized I didn't have the same as kids, because my mom kind of like, she didn't like the Timbs or the Jordans. I had like Tommy Hilfiger sneakers, Guess boots, like my mom was like one of those moms. And she I remember I stopped asking her for things. I just stopped. And then when I got to high school, when I like started making money on my own, I went a completely different route than I thought I would. I started like kind of buying Converses. I had like all the colors, especially they were like what, $40 back then, $30.
Yes.
I had all the exclusive ones. I had the denim, I had the comic book ones, and it's just like, I think I put myself in that lane. And then I started just that mentality of like just the Caribbean. If you look at any Caribbeans, they all kind of dress different from each other. It's just that they have the mentality that you gotta look good.
Yes. Yeah, at the end of the day, I'm representing my family, so make sure I look nice when I'm out in the streets.
Oh yeah.
So I don't look poor and homeless.
I was telling my friend the other day, I was like, yo, that's one thing I do appreciate, like learning that I have to look good in certain, like, when I'm going to a party or something. I learned that from my mom. Like, make sure you're dressed up, and if you're going to the salon, make sure you look presentable.
Yeah, that word. Everything is presentable. Yeah, I think like what you're saying, when I got into high school and I started working and I was making my own money, I didn't try to dress like other kids, because already I was like, I like being different.
Yeah.
And I really didn't care. Also by then, like high school, I felt a little bit stronger in my faith. And I was very determined to be an example.
Yeah.
And understanding that people were like, the saying like, no, people won't read a Bible, but they'll read your life.
Oh, yeah.
So understanding I was in high school and I was a Christian, and that was weird. Very weird for other kids.
Yeah.
And I just dressed differently, and I liked it, and it just translated to everything. And I was like the hippie boho girl in the hood. Wearing Free People and layering and running around in Converse and Jeffrey Campbell Litas, and I liked it.
Yeah, I'm telling you, when you do start to work and make your money, it's different. So when I came up with this topic, I was thinking, like, I caught myself comparing because, like, I was on social media and I was like, oh my God, why am I not that far ahead, and I was like, whoa. I caught myself immediately. I was like, whoa, like what? Especially if you're in the same field as the person you're looking at. So me and Michelle are both into fashion, styling. And I think that I can get caught up in looking on social media what other people are doing, and it's not even like that. It's like, you do have to think about other people's paths, especially. And just know your path is going to be different from everybody else. So I'm so happy I caught myself. I was like, whoa, what am I doing? I have to because especially if someone is like, you don't even know how their grind is and what they are allowing themselves to be in for them to be far ahead. So that is a whole nother thing.
I definitely agree, because I think about, I could be a lot further ahead, especially styling wise. And I know that. That's not a question. It's not like, well, it could be like a hypothetical. I know I could be a lot further. But I had a job and I understood what self-worth was, and I refused to be disrespected in the space that I was in. And I went my separate way, and that meant that I had to start all over again and had to start out on my own instead of starting out under someone, which would have been a quicker process. But at the end of the day, I have my mental health, and you can't pay for, I mean, you can pay for it, it's very expensive to get back to a mentally healthy space, but I don't have to pay for it, and I already know my self-worth. And I think that helped going into the space. A lot of people just think that, like, once they get someplace, happiness is attached to it, and that's not me. I understand everything, every journey, there's a process in their learning, especially I think with social media. It's good, and then there's so much poison to it if you don't look at it properly. And especially if you intentionally follow people who are doing the same thing that you're doing and starting out the same way you're starting out, and you see them get so much further ahead. A lot of times you be like, I was doing it, I'm better than them, you know, and you're like, you like what you're saying, you have to catch yourself, and you have to be like, their journey is not my journey is not their journey, and what I can handle, they can't handle. What they can handle, I can't handle, and I always have to keep that in mind. It makes it easier.
Do you agree that with the saying when they say that if you're feeling away looking at someone's post, unfollow them? Or
yes, because I feel like a lot of times we don't think about our mental health and what narrative is happening when we're looking at something. And if you're looking at someone that you admire, or someone that's doing what you're doing, and you feel some type of way, and you catch yourself in the narrative of what you're saying as you're looking at it, it's best to unfollow them, because it's not healthy for you. And then you have issues with someone who most of the time doesn't even know who you are. So it's like, what's the point? Like, all you're doing is building something up in your heart that's not healthy for you.
That's so true. Because I see, no offense to like people that take like social media breaks, but it's like, because like you have to look at why you're doing breaks all the time. And I'm not trying to call nobody out. My friend, she always takes social media breaks for her mental health, and I just be like, just block people, just mute people, like, because I look at social media as entertainment most likely, like. Especially like if I need to laugh, Twitter is a place for me. Like, I just love it. But I think some people do have the mentality of social media wrong. Like, even though it's nice to show highlights of your life, but like, be happy for other people genuinely. Like, generally, like, just be happy for people when you see it. I think that what they said, I think I heard something recently about like
yeah, I think social media breaks depend on the person. I've done social media breaks as part of fasting from things, because a lot of times if I'm fasting, like spiritually or a lot of times is connect to mentally, what am I exposing myself? What am I feeding myself during this time?
Yeah.
So a lot of times it's like, well, I shouldn't be on social media because I'm not feeding myself anything that's lining up to what I'm doing right now.
Yeah.
Especially during the fast.
Yeah. Can you like tell a story of like how when you saw someone compare themselves and then it go wrong? Because I feel like, do you know stories like that?
I do, but I feel like if I tell them, it just gives like people away.
I mean, don't like go all like.
I'm not gonna like go into detail.
Okay.
I feel like maybe I should just use myself as an example.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, I'm like, when did I do something and it went wrong? Like, comparing myself. There are many times where, well, not many times. There have been times when like I've seen something and I'm like, well, I can do that too. And then I do it and I feel very uncomfortable and out of place because it's not me.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like I'm trying to portray an image like where I've seen someone else do it. I'm like, oh, if they could do it, I can do it. Like we kind of look the same all the time, you know?
Yeah.
And then you do it and you're like, this isn't me. Like regardless if it looks good or not, it's just it isn't me. And you feel foolish because a lot of your confidence is attached to like what you're comfortable with. A lot of times.
That is so true. That is true. Yeah, I was thinking about like one time when I'm trying to think of one time that I did it because I can't even try to think. It had to be like when I was younger, and I tried to do something. Maybe you know, you get in a space like you're still figuring out yourself, especially when you get to like those 13, 14, like those odd years, the odd years.
Yeah.
And you're trying, especially when it comes to you try to take on another person's personality.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't work for you. I caught myself doing that before, and it's just not me. I think that when you're comfortable with just like the awkwardness and becoming who you truly are, that's why it's called Tru Self. I think that you're never gonna have it all together at once.
Yeah.
So I think it's healthy to kind of go through those emotions of comparing yourself and kind of growing out of it. If you're stuck in it, that's really unhealthy. Because I can always, especially the friends around me, I can feel like I can always compare myself to them. And recently, I talked to my therapist about this, and she was like amazing about it. Because I was telling her like, I felt like I was being stuck. I see people going ahead of me, and I'm stuck. And then she was like, how do you know that? I was like, what? She said, how do you know they're going ahead of you? I was like, I'm better. I was like, thanks for that. Because she needed to remind me, how do I actually know that they're going ahead of me? And I was like, yo. I was like, and I've been trying to speak to her about this for like a month. And I didn't even get around to it yet. So I finally was in a space to ask her. So I just felt like a huge weight lifted off me when she said that to me. Because you don't know.
Yeah.
And she came up with some metaphor, and I was like, what are you talking about? She was like, she said, if I pick up a bag of candy, right? She's Trinidadian. She said, if I pick up a bag of candy and I don't look what it say, right? I bring it all the way upstairs and I see that what it says. How was I supposed to know what it says if I didn't pick it up? I was like, what does that even mean?
It's such a Caribbean. Like they say stuff and you're like, what? Like, and they're just like, you understand? I'm like, I don't. Like,
oh my
please,
gosh.
use a different metaphor.
Exactly. I was just like, okay, I think I get what you're saying, but all right.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's it. Oh, you know, I have questions for each one, right? Do you have a question? Like, each episode I do ask people, like, you know, do you have a question to ask people that's listening? In the midst of, like, comparison, though. Like, ask themselves. So this is about, like, asking yourself healthy questions to kind of get to the root of it.
No, let me see. I'm like, what do I normally ask myself? That helps me like recalibrate.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I think of like, I not to tie into relationship.
You still have. Yeah, you do.
I always think about the verse, Psalms 119. This is what I'm fearfully and wonderfully made, and I think, that's been like a verse that stuck with me since I was younger. And I always think about the fact that like God made me a certain way, and He has a certain particular journey for me to go on. And a lot of times it's like hard to remind yourself that. Like I remember I was like 28, and my cousin, who was like my sidekick, like we went everywhere together to the point where when we went to weddings, we were each other's +1. It was like Michelle and she was on the invite. That's like how we were. When she got married, it was just like a whole shocker, because it's like, well, what do I do? Like, when am I gonna get my boo? It's like, why am I not married? And going on that whole tangent. And then I was like, you know what? It's just not time for me to be married yet, and I have to be fine with that, because I can force it and then
end up in a mess.
End up in a whole hot mess, or I can just wait for God's timing. You know?
Oh yeah.
And 2 years later, I met my crazy husband, Chris. And even now, like with the journey of like trying to have kids, it's like, who said that I'm supposed to have this done by this time? And I think that's the question you have to ask yourself. Like, who said? Did God say I'm supposed to have it done by this time? Like, or is it because I'm looking around and everyone else has done it by this time that I'm thinking I should have to do it by this time? So even like as we're going into trying for kids, I'm like, who said I have kids by the time I'm in this age? I still like I just ran 3 miles. Like I can catch up with them when it's time, you know? Yeah. So it's like I always remind myself, God's timing is my timing. Like when God says it's time to go, that's when it's time to go. I can't force anything. I won't force anything. I won't try to speed up or slow down to match someone else's marathon and run. My run is my run, and all I can focus on is finishing my run.
Yeah.
So I guess the question is really to ask yourself is like, who said you're supposed to be wherever you are by this time? Who said you're supposed to graduate school by 21? Like, who said that? You graduate when you graduate, and then you go on, you start your journey. You meet your boo when you meet your boo, or you don't. Doesn't mean you stop living. Like, life still goes on.
Why do people think that completeness is like when you get there?
Yeah, like it's like, oh, when I get to this point, everything is gonna come together. And it's like, did you not read the Bible?
Because
that
it's
never
like
happens.
it is so like, it's like, I think it's just everybody, like how people just push things on each other, on like, especially like parents, they like to kind of what is that thing they do? They I forgot what she does. She puts her fears onto me and project. Thank you. Yeah. The projection of other people is so real, and I had to catch myself one time because I'm so happy I catch myself now. With I tried because my friend was telling me she was going to LA and she was going to stay like downtown LA, and I've never been to LA, especially downtown LA, and I just see what I see on TV. Yeah. So then I was about to say, oh my God, it's dangerous over there. You know? Like, but I caught myself and I was like, oh, okay, like if you want to be next to museums, do that then. I was so close to saying, oh, it's dangerous out there. But I don't know. Yeah. I've never been, and I hear downtown LA is big, so you're not really close to Skid Row like they say, but it's like,
well, it's like Bed-Stuy. People are like, is Bed-Stuy safe? Like, if you have to ask the question, don't come.
Oh my
god. Like, you don't belong. Like, there is always a projection of attached or put onto things. Yeah. Because of a story or some random 1% experience.
That's so true.
But you know, Caribbean parents are famous for projecting everything.
Oh my god, I get that from her. I get that from my mom, for real. Oh my gosh. But thank you for being on Tru Self.
Yeah.
I love this. I love that question. Oh my God. That is deep. It's deep in my eyes because that's a true thing. Who said, you know?